Ladies and gentlemen, this is your final boarding call for the good ship SS Tomorrow.
Today on The Friendly Futurist, the first element on the periodic table. And welcome back, and today we've got a very special guest. We've got Rinaldo Brutoco. He's joining us from Santa Barbara in California, and he's founded the World Business Academy, but he's also been in this space. He's been in this space since the 1980s. About, not just thinking about how business can do better, and not just for profit, but also for people and planet. He also alluded to another P, purpose. Now, we had a great old chat back in July about the hydrogen economy. And in case you're wondering, there was one event in July, an extreme event here in Australia, where in the space of a week, snow fell on each of the 7 states. The only thing that didn't fall was the Northern Territory, but there were snowfall events WA, South Australia, Victoria, New South Wales, ACT, and in the Darling Downs in southern Queensland. So yes, it was an extreme event. I think he might have misunderstood but how the Southern Hemisphere is a little bit different to the Northern Hemisphere, but hey, it was what you know. Anyhow, we are discussing hydrogen and how it's going to replace hydrocarbons or fossil fuels. And I have discussed hydrogen before. This podcast is a safe space for green technology. If you're looking back for hydrogen, go back to Series 11, Episode 3, where we chat to Kathy Planet from Hiringa in New Zealand. Or if you want a more of a local flavour and see how Australia's progressing with the renewable transition, go back to Season 15, Episode 3, with Gavin from Kaluza. I think this is a bit of a theme happening with Episode 3. And the energy transition, that's, I think, just the way the cookie crumbles. But anyhow, Rinaldo is coming up after the break. And welcome back to another episode. We've got a very special guest. He's joining us all the way from California. His name is Rinaldo Brutoco. He's an entrepreneur, patent holder. We're going to talk about all things energy transition, AI, and all those things that we are talking about. Now, this show is about cautious optimism. He's actually got an email called Optimism Daily. And Rinaldo, welcome to the show. And those were my guests.
Thank you, Dave. Have you had a chance to see it yet?
I have.
Optimism Daily.
Yeah.
Yeah, you'll like it. And by the way, there's about 21,000 articles in the library.
Wow.
So at some point we can go trolling. A lot of them are very old because I've been doing this for 10 years now, but there's quite a few articles in there.
That should balance out News Corp.
I don't know about that.
Oh, I should answer that out. Anyhow, Rinaldo, as with my guest, can you just give us a quick rundown about your journey so far and start wherever you want to start?
Well, just basically, Dave, I've had 2 full-time careers my whole adult life, literally full-time. One is my work in the primarily environmental movement, but basically in renewable energy. I've done a lot in changing value structures for corporations, CEO education. I've guest lectured at Stanford Business School, Kellogg Business School, a dozen more that are prominent. And I've written 4 books, 45 articles of significant length, and 151,000 word op-ed pieces.
Wow.
So I write a lot. I publish a lot in my nonprofit side. And I've been doing my nonprofit work through the World Business Academy since 1986, 85, 86. My for-profit full-time activity is a merchant bank that I started in 1981 that pays my bills because the only way I could get my bills paid was to do them myself. since the kind of stuff I've been into has not been on the forefront of where people wanted to go at the time. Now, it's worked out well for me in the long haul. So my research got me into organic food 35 years ago. And so I bought a couple organic food companies, and I've done very well with that. And that's not the only one that I've done well with, that where I did something because I thought it was important for society to have access to good food.
Yeah.
But I also have been in a lot of other industries, and my background's, you can see it on the web. It's pretty extensive. So that 2 full-time careers have kept me busy looking at what's good for society and what can I do to help business do what's good for society, and in the process make a profit. So the World Business Academy is not the World Theosophical Society. It's not the World Philosophical Society. It's really about how business can do better for itself and for the societies from which it arises by doing the right thing by society.
Yeah. So that's good because, as long as I can remember, we've been taught, the triple bottom line, not just profit, but also think about the people and the planet. So I think that's quite on top.
Well, actually, we started doing that about 25 years ago. And then about 15 years ago, we added a 4th P.
Okay.
So we believe in people, planet, profit, purpose. It's got to have a purpose. People have to have a purpose to be really meaningful contributors. Businesses have to have a purpose to be meaningful long-term contributors. So we've added P to the 4th P to that, people, planet, profits.
Yeah. And can you just tell us, first of all, about the book about freedom from Middle East oil and what it has to do with this, obviously the green energy transition?
Yeah, so I did a joint venture meeting with Rocky Mountain Institute in 2005 on renewable energies, because at that time, Rocky Mountain was doing some of the best work in that area. And we felt they'd be a great partner to put on an extensive 2-part panel for a CEO seminar I was doing here in Santa Barbara with about 200 plus C-suite people. Okay. And so we put this on. And at the end of the second part of the second panel, we said, oh my God, this is appalling. The business community doesn't understand renewable energy, doesn't know that it's coming, doesn't know why it's coming. At that point, they were still resisting going off of incandescent light bulbs. I mean, we're talking ancient history in 2005. So when it was over, we decided we better write the whole thing up as a book. So we wrote it up. In 2007, it was published. And what it was a compendium, still is, a compendium of all forms of renewable energy, ones that were already being used or talked about, others that had been suggested but had not been put into practice, and others that were still somewhat for the future. And that book has stood the test of time. It's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of footnotes in it. And it covered virtually every conceivable type of renewable energy you can imagine. And at the end, in the second to last chapter, we said, okay, but where does this lead us? And the answer is it leads us away from fossil fuels because the planet cannot sustain it, climate change reasons. This was 2007. And on top of that, it tells us that we're going to have to create the hydrogen economy. Because of all the things we've studied, the only thing capable of replacing fossil fuel is hydrogen. So we reached that conclusion, and we started working on hydrogen. We started working on all the renewable energy aspects of the book, and one thing led to another. Yeah.
And for the sake of my listeners who do not know, can you explain the hydrogen economy?
Explain it. Sure. The hydrogen economy is a reference to the fact that hydrogen is a superior way to remove fossil fuels from our economic system and do so at a profit. So let me give you an example. The hard to abate sectors, as they are called, so steel and cement. The only thing you can do to eliminate coke and coal is to use hydrogen, because the hydrogen will put out a hot enough flame that it can actually take and smelt from pig iron. It can smelt steel. Nothing else can do that but coke. So that's the hard to abate sector. Cement is another hard to abate sector. And there again, hydrogen is the only way you can remove the current reliance on fossil fuels. Then you look at coastal traffic, boats. And what you see is that there's a very successful ferry boat running in San Francisco Bay on hydrogen. It has been for a couple of years now, and there's one in Norway, more coming. Then you look at locomotives. So there's now 29 hydrogen locomotives in the world, one in California, one in Canada, and 27 in Germany and France combined. Well, the reason is if you want to put a locomotive that's been running as a diesel on a non-electrified track, because remember, you can only electrify a track if you got lots of passengers going down from point A to point B every day. So you want to go, Berlin to Paris, no problem. It's electrified, high speed. But if you want to go 15 blocks from Berlin to a switching yard, that's a diesel.
Yeah.
So 50% of all the trains, the locomotives in Germany are still diesels. They're being replaced by hydrogen. Then you take 18-wheelers. The only conceivable way to replace fossil fuel in 18-wheelers is hydrogen because batteries are too heavy and it won't work. So you see 18-wheelers for the last 2 years running up and down the Alps, literally in Switzerland, using hydrogen.
Yeah.
Okay? And you can't do that with batteries because it'd be too much weight. Then you get into cars. Well, no good to buses. So for 15, 16 years now, we've been running buses in San Francisco area, East Bay Mud, that are hydrogen. They're cheaper to maintain. Everything about them is better, except one thing. And by the way, automobiles is another place for it, transportation sector. But the problem you have with hydrogen is the cost per kilogram. And that's a problem that's artificial. So the hydrogen economy says we can reduce the price of hydrogen so it's competitive with fossil fuels. And when we do that, we can make the switch over so that business doesn't have to say, well, we can either be green or be profitable. We can be green and profitable. In fact, we're more profitable for greener.
Yeah.
So I'll give you two actual numbers your listeners might not know. Around the world today, 97% of all the hydrogen is created from methane reformation. That's taking steam and cracking methane.
Yep.
Okay? Primarily done by refineries for their own use. It costs basically about $1.50 a kilowatt to make hydrogen from steam reformation. They are selling that same hydrogen to me where I fill up my hydrogen vehicle for $36 a kilogram. Now, how can you explain 1.5 to 36? There's only one explanation anyone knows, and that's basically you have monopoly pricing. So until we can create a market, primary and secondary market for hydrogen to be used in a variety of different ways and cost effectively deliver it, then you're not going to be able to crack the fossil fuel network.
Yeah.
Once hydrogen, so let's just take an example. If you were to make hydrogen in a very cheap location, Morocco, you have $1.50 a kilowatt there. No, you have a penny and a half a kilowatt there. You have 5 cents a kilowatt for wind there. Sun is 1.5 cents per kilowatt. So you're talking about a very inexpensive place to make hydrogen. And you've got the Atlas Mountains dropping water to you so you can afford to take the water. Now, if you could get that hydrogen to Germany, delivered cheaply enough, you can make it now in Morocco for about $8 a kilogram or less.
Oh, wow.
Okay. So the question is, can I get it to Germany for $4 or $5 a kilogram? The answer is you can now. There are ways to move frozen or liquid hydrogen. There's ways to move gaseous hydrogen. My sister company called H2 Clipper basically specializes in how to get hydrogen from point A to point B. Now, we intentionally don't own anything. What we do with that company is we take research I do with the academy, and if no one else is willing to productize it, we'll put our money into it and we'll productize it. So we have technology for moving hydrogen very inexpensively through pipelines, safely with no leakage, and we can do that for a pittance. And we can also move it up 500 miles or more in a dirigible that can carry up to 400,000 pounds of liquid hydrogen, minus 453 degrees Fahrenheit, any distance you want in the world, and do it green with no fossil fuel whatsoever.
Wow.
So when we have those capabilities, and we're no longer constrained by market forces that are basically monopolistic, we will achieve the hydrogen economy, which means an economy based on hydrogen, the way the current one is fossil fuel, and based on an economy that's as economic or more economic than what we're paying for fossil fuel today.
And I guess, too, the best thing about hydrogen is the most abundant in the universe, so we'll never run out.
Yeah, I mean, people don't realize, but 78% of all the molecules in the universe are hydrogen. Yeah. We have so much hydrogen around us, we don't even realize, like, we're like a fish swimming in water. You know, tell a fish what water is, and you have a hard time because that's all they know, right? And hydrogen is that for us. Well, the invested interests, like the fossil fuel companies, are using, particularly the Trump administration currently, but others, to extend their lifeline longer. They know it will end, but they don't want it to end any sooner than it has to because they keep raking more and more, raking in massive, I would say, obscene profits, and they keep getting subsidized. In the United States, we're going to subsidize about $16 billion to fossil fuel, the richest industry the world's ever known. It makes no sense. But with politics, that's what happens. So what we have right now is a battle going on between the future, which is the hydrogen economy, replacing the fossil fuel economy, which we have no choice anyway because of climate change.
Yeah.
So it's not like you can choose, I'd rather have the dirty fossil fuel versus the clean. No, when you burn, strike that, when you use hydrogen in a fuel cell, if it was green to start with, it's 100% green on the back end, meaning there is no pollution whatsoever. The only byproduct is water, H2O. So it's a green technology. It's super abundant. It can be made anywhere, unlike fossil fuel, which has to be drilled for in areas of the world which may or may not be suitable for other things. So when you've got countries like Morocco that can make it dirt cheap, Scotland can make it extremely cheaply, parts of North Africa can make it cheaply. Of course, Canada, who has a major deal with Germany right now, Nova Scotia, and et cetera. So around the world, you can make hydrogen. You don't need a special mining permit. But what you do need is we need to get past these monopolistic forces, pricing forces.
Absolutely.
Which we will.
And also, I guess, to the other use of hydrogen as well, it's the N word, the nuclear fusion technology as well.
Yeah, but not really. I mean, when you talk about hydrogen in nuclear, it's a different reality.
Yeah.
It's a different thing. So for how you make a hydrogen bomb, as an example, has nothing to do with how you make hydrogen for fuel. Nothing, not even close. In fact, people don't realize, but hydrogen is the safest fuel in the world. If I took a gun, like a rifle or a pistol, and I shot your gas tank, would you drive there to work today? And if I pop a bullet in that gas tank, you know what's going to happen to your car? It's going to blow up. Literally, like a bomb. If you have natural gas, I pump a bullet into it. It'll blow up like a bomb. If you have diesel, it'll blow up like a bomb. If you have hydrogen, it won't explode. It'll let out a giant purple flame that'll be about 30 feet long. And as soon as all the hydrogen's gone, it'll extinguish itself.
Oh, wow.
It doesn't blow up because the escape rate's so high. So and by the way, if you want to see this, go online. There are numerous YouTube videos of college professors shooting tanks of hydrogen versus tanks of gas. And they will show you what I just said.
Okay, well, I'll make sure that's in the show notes. It sounds, sounds like a great day of wasting time.
Hydrogen's very, very safe. It's very safe because it has this extremely high expansion level.
Yeah.
It's simple because it's the most simple molecule on the periodic table. It's one proton, one neutron, one electron. It's number one on the periodic table. Simplest there is. So it's so simple, it combines with everything. And that's why it's all over the universe.
Yeah.
And so the easiest way to get green hydrogen today is to electrolyze water. So you put a cathode and an anode, and a small charge between them, and put it in water, boom, up comes hydrogen and oxygen.
Yeah, that's so true. And I guess too, with the back end, a little backtrack here, if we have hydrogen at scale and the only byproduct's water, I guess there'd be a lot more moisture in the air. It's just...
Well, right now, you've got a tremendous problem with moisture in the air because you have 8% increase, maybe closer to 9% as a result of climate change. And that's why you're seeing these large tsunami-like flooding events around the world. So if you go just 10 years ago, there was at least 6-7% less water today, but 9% more than the historical average. When that much water collides with the cold front, it goes boom, it comes down real fast and hard. And you get these monsoonal rains, like Beijing just suffered a terrible flood, 38 people dead. Texas had a couple. You know, the East Coast has been seeing flooding all over the East Coast of America. So that increase in moisture in the atmosphere is a direct result of climate change. It happens because the planet's hotter, the biosphere is hotter, and that causes more evaporation from the oceans, and it gets up in the air, and it's going to stay there till two fronts collide, and then it's going to come down with a passion. So what you need to be aware of is we are creating climate change every day at an alarming rate.
Of course.
And the amount of extra moisture that go in the air from hydrogen, bogus. It's not even significant. So what we really have to do is stop the heating of the planet. That's a different issue.
Yeah. Now, moving on, and we're still in the renewables, but...
By the way, you know what side benefit? Is side benefit just because you asked about water?
Yeah, I just wanted the benefit.
Because,
because
because the hydrogen...
Yeah, I just had a little thought experiment. You know, if we place water, you know, if we just... all these hydrogen cars, it just mean here in Australia, we'll probably notice a bit more condensation on the road.
Yeah. No, you won't. But what you will notice is, because that's going to be a factor of climate change, not of hydrogen utilization, because it's like you're talking about a pimple versus an elephant.
Fair enough.
But if you look at what it will do is, let's say you you run a fuel cell in a particular area to create electricity rather than bring it in from 1,000 miles or 100 miles away by high tension wires. When you do that and you create electricity from that hydrogen by going through a fuel cell, you will create a tremendous amount of water. And that's stationary, unlike a car.
Okay.
So in a desert, you've just created a way to bring water
Well,
where there was no water. And you get electricity for free. So it's a huge, huge shift, which the more you study it, the more people become enamored with it. And again, it's being held back by powerful economic forces.
Yeah. Well, that's probably the point I was trying to get at, but yeah, that's fascinating. Really it is. So Ronaldo, moving away from hydrogen, let's talk about some other areas. Decentralized microgrids. Is that the future of household energy?
Centralized marketing.
Decentralized microgrids.
You see, yes. So decentralized microgrids are the future because if you don't know the story, and it's a good one, how did we get all these high-powered wires all over the country, in fact, all over the world? Where'd they come from? Well, they came from a debate that Thomas Edison lost. So Thomas Edison said and started to build small little microgrids in Manhattan. Because he said, if we keep the power close to where it's used, we could use direct current, and that's multiples more efficient than alternating current. He was opposed by a man named Nikola Tesla. Tesla's partner was a man named George Westinghouse. So you had an inventor and a really superb business guy against an inventor. Guess who lost?
The inventor, yeah.
Edison lost.
Edison lost.
Yeah, but he was right. So what a microgrid is when you take, let's say I'm in Santa Barbara, California. We have enough sunshine here to create a tremendous amount of electricity. Not much wind, but a lot of sun. So if we were to collect that electricity and use it in a microgrid, meaning feeding it out to our own distribution network locally, not moving it some larger place far, far away, we would be able to tap the best solar resource in the world, the sun itself. And as soon as we put that fuel cell at the base of an existing, already there substation. So in America, in California, we have 3,300 electrical substations, which is where the power comes in from long lines, comes down to the substation, gets downgraded to local distribution, goes out through local distribution lines. That's how power is distributed today, right? You put a microgrid at the base of that substation, and all of a sudden, every electron you generate from hydrogen is one electron you don't have to carry on the grid, which is important because the grid's collapsing all over America. Yeah. We have three main grids, California, Texas, and New England. They're all in advanced state of decline. And right in California, we've had, I think, 12 cutoffs already this year for power.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because the 83% of all the forest fires start from those high-powered lines in the backcountry. So you don't want them. Now, when Tesla had that fight with Thomas Edison in 1880s in New York, Tesla's answer was, let's build a giant, huge power plant for the whole of Manhattan, but let's put it where somebody doesn't live. Let's put it over in Brooklyn. No one lives there. Well, obviously, Brooklyn's full of people now.
That's right.
But they never changed the basic understanding of why they put it in Brooklyn in the first place. And when you go to AC, you lose a tremendous amount of efficiency, but you can move it over distance.
Yeah.
DC cannot be moved over distance, which is why it has to be done in conjunction with microgrids. And if you want to start a microgrid as AC, you can do that. In fact, they're all over the place. Now, let me give you the example of the fastest growing area of microgrids in the world today. Guess what it is?
So?
A server farm, whether they're there to do Bitcoin or whether they're there to do AI. In the last 4 or 5 years, they've all been built using fuel cell assisted microgrids.
Okay.
In other words, they use a local fuel cell. Now, they aren't building microgrids into the formula because they don't really care about the sunshine, because to them, the power is so cheap relative to what they were making that they just use a fuel cell. But they're using fuel cells run by hydrogen. Why? Because they can't trust grid power. It has too many spikes. It's too dirty. It doesn't have resilience. So when you build a server farm for these high-end applications, Bitcoin or AI, you can't afford power interruptions. You can't afford dirty power. It's got to be squeaky clean, and it can't stop, because when it stops, it's a real problem.
Yeah.
So what you're seeing is the only alternative right now to fuel cells for those applications is like what Microsoft is doing, which is to try and rent the second nuclear reactor at 3 Mile Island.
Yeah.
So have you heard about
Yeah.
that? Yeah. So Microsoft has contracted with TMI, 3 Mile Island, so that the second reactor that did not catch fire, did not explode, which has been mothballed all these years, they want to bring it out of mothballs and use it for 100% power for server farms and AI.
Okay.
I would say the risks associated with nuclear, the very plant 3 Mile Island stands for risk, as does Fukushima, as does, what do you call it, over in Ukraine? Yeah,
Chernobyl.
It's an incredibly stupid kind of energy, which is extremely expensive. We still don't know how to get rid of the waste, the disposal of waste. And it's the most expensive kind of energy we have. You can't produce energy with a nuclear power plant for, in a sense, $0.015 a kilowatt. I said $1.50 a while ago. I meant $0.015.
Yeah.
But you can make hydrogen for, as I did say it a while ago, for $8 or so a kilogram. And if you can make it for that cheap, given that a kilogram of hydrogen has a little bit less than 2 times the power of a gallon of gas, you're really talking about a gallon of gas at $5, $6.
Interesting.
Is competitive with $8 a kilogram of hydrogen.
Yeah.
So we're there. And unlike the gas, we have no adverse consequences when we use hydrogen in a fuel cell.
Yeah.
I don't recommend burning it, but you don't have it in a fuel cell, you haven't got the problem.
Interesting. Now, as this podcast is about the future, where do you see the world we live in, say, in the 2030s and beyond?
Well, first of all, I think that, there's this great quote by Victor Hugo. Nothing is as powerful as an idea whose time has come. So I would say that if we survive as a species, the jury's out on that. I'm not sure Western civilization is going to survive. I think there's a good discussion that can be had about why it might not survive. But the way we are going, with the way we are heating the planet, it is entirely conceivable that Western civilization, as you know it, will not survive past 2050.
Wow.
So, when you're talking about 30, 40 years out, that's 2050. And what I'm saying to you is the reason, if you look at what's called the hockey stick diagram, which was first published in Al Gore's book, Inconvenient Truth, it's been republished a number of times since. Basically, you see a dramatic rise in greenhouse gases until you get to about 3 years ago, and then it goes straight up. It's called the hockey stick. It just goes straight up. And we're in that straight up period now. So I was talking to someone today in New Hampshire. It's over 100 degrees in New Hampshire today. New Hampshire's never heard of 100 degrees. It's a cold state.
Yeah.
Okay. Maine was over 100 yesterday. Boston was over 103. People don't realize, and what was 100 today is 101 or 2 tomorrow, meaning next year, because the climate is deteriorating at an accelerated rate. So that's why you're seeing worse climate events every year than the year before. And so what was a 100-year storm or 1,000-year storm becomes a 100-year storm. What was a 100-year storm becomes last month's storm. And another one coming today.
There's actually a forecast for snow on every 7 states in Australia this week.
What do you attribute that to?
Climate change, obviously, but we have a very gnarly cold front coming up from the Antarctic.
Let me explain why. So we started tracking in the Academy years ago the jet stream because we noticed it was starting to wobble. So the jet stream had a very predictable pattern for decades and decades and decades, all through the last century. And it would go like this, and it would dip right over North Dakota, and then it would go back up, and it go straight across almost to Toronto.
Yeah.
And it stayed in that position because of the differential between the super cold air at the pole and the warmer weather coming out of the Gulf that would bang into it. But what was happening was they were mixing too much. Yeah. And so we saw it start to do this, the jet stream. And it's gotten to the point where the jet stream doesn't have integrity now, meaning it's fluctuating. Yeah. The other thing that's happened, we've now detected, in the east coast of America, we have what's called the Gulf Stream. The ocean currents are the most powerful environmental factors on the planet, apart from the jet stream. And the Gulf Stream has now moved. Yeah. It's going to be moving some more. And the reason is the Gulf Stream takes hot water from the equator, pumps it up to the northern climates. As it goes up, it gets colder and colder. It drops down, comes back down to the equator and picks up more heat and goes back up. So that's a conveyor belt of heat between the equator and, say, the North Pole. Well, that's been badly disturbed now. And as a result, it's no longer predictable what months it will be running where. It is predictable from the sense that it is within broad parameters.
Yeah.
But what's not predictable is where it's heading 5, 10, 15 years from now, as you inquired. So what I see happening is acceleration of climate damage. I see tremendous risk to the insurance industry that they may not be able to handle the costs associated with liability insurance and disaster insurance. I see the likelihood of extreme weather events accelerating with increased deaths and property destruction. And I think that's already baked into the system.
Yeah.
Now, can we turn that around? Yes, it's possible. Are we working to turn it around? No, we're not. Certainly the U.S. is not. I'm happy to see that Europe is trying to get even more aggressive now because the Europeans, and by the way, the Chinese are starting to get aggressive even before the flood in Beijing yesterday.
Yeah.
Which, as I said, killed 38 people in Beijing. It was an amazing flood.
Interesting.
In fact, you know what you guys have had in Australia? You've had a couple of events where I've seen very large clumps of ice. So these storms that you get, these thunderstorms, which will hit hail on the ground, right?
Yeah.
We call it hail here.
We call it
That's
hail
what you
here too, yeah.
You got some very big hailstones now. They're not small. And they're coming up in odd months, as you know. So destabilization is the hallmark of what we live in. The question is, will we move fast enough to get on top of the destabilization so it doesn't terminate our ability to live with it? And there's lots of ways that it would tend to terminate. Let me give you an example. It's quite well accepted now that 45 or 50% of all the coral reefs in the world are dead. That's stunning when you consider what percentage of the world's population lives off fish.
Yeah.
And that the incubation of fish is coral reef.
It's not just the coral reefs, it's also the kelp forests we have like down in southern Tassie.
Yeah.
They're pretty much...
Yeah. And in California,
Yeah.
we have huge kelp forests here, giant kelp like you do, and it's just getting destroyed. Because ocean heat is a huge, huge factor.
So that's interesting too. Like here, on the East Coast, bull sharks are a species of sharks that go into the rivers and, now they usually live in the northern half of the country, but now they're coming into the southern half of the country and giving birth in rivers where they weren't. They're usually pretty cold because it used to be about 19 degrees Celsius is where it's usually the tip-off point for where they can actually live. So, yeah.
There's a study going on right now this week in Australia off the other coast of whale sharks. And they're trying to find out what's killing so many of them. And there's not a lot known about whale sharks. So it's been an interesting study, and it has something to do, they think, with what it's encountering in the ocean that's causing it to have problems so that its health is deteriorating, even though it's an animal that doesn't come close to shore.
Yeah. Here in Western Australia, the whale sharks are a massive tourism asset. So, yeah, we'll keep an eye on that study.
I think it's on the other coast, but yes. So those are the issues that we're, as a human civilization, the question is, are we going to be smart enough to stop what we started? Anybody who doesn't accept climate change at this point really isn't worth talking to because there's just too much evidence. It's too obvious. It's too everywhere. So if you're fighting it, it's not really helpful to debate it because it means you're not really open to facts. You got your mind made up for other reasons. But if you are open to facts, it's inescapable what climate change is doing. And as a result, I'm glad that the European Union, at least, is rededicating itself to the Paris Climate Accords. And even though we have a backward administration in the United States, the Chinese are very keen on getting those Paris. They've signed up for them again just recently. So accords for climate are a small step, but at least indicate we want to solve the problem.
Yeah.
The American administration doesn't want to solve the problem. No. In fact, if you did not read about it, just yesterday, the Americans' Environmental Protection Agency, started by Richard Nixon, no less, a conservative Republican, basically issued a statement, which is insane, that there is no harm to humans done by climate gases.
Really?
Yeah. And the reason they did that is once you say that, then the authority of the EPA to regulate fossil fuels goes away. So it's a way to get rid of all the environmental regulations. Now, is that smart? No. Is that going to come back to haunt people? You bet it is. But the question is, will people get smart enough soon enough? Because climate change is cumulative. It doesn't just happen 2 + 2 is 4 + 2 is 6 + 2 is 8. It's 2 times 2 is 4 times 4 is 16. So climate change is a geometric progression, not arithmetic. And as a result, we have to get on top of it sooner or it will kill us.
Yeah.
And I don't think any reasonable people doubt that anymore. So the only thing they might debate is how fast will it kill us, but not whether it will kill us.
Well,
which, if you're talking about something that'll kill you, how fast is probably not the question you want to ask.
That's right.
Like, how do I get rid of the threat?
Yeah. How to get rid of the threat. I think that's a good thing to wrap it up on the show, Rinaldo. Before we go, is there anything I didn't ask but should?
Yeah, Dave, there's so many, but there's too much to cover, so do it on another show. But we need to talk about the implications to agriculture.
Yeah.
We need to talk about the implications to basically the survival of the coral reefs, which is now in serious doubt. We need to be talking about whether or not we're going to be able to snatch our civilizations back from what I call the tyranny of fossil fuel. And are we going to be able to encourage our politicians to metaphorically refer to it as heroin, to pull the needle out?
Yeah.
You don't get green by continuing to use more fossil fuel.
No.
And at this point, we have to start seeing the rise of a new industry, which is clean and green, and it'll give us a chance to reverse climate change. We must reverse it. The lives of our children and our grandchildren depend on it, and we can't ignore that.
Yeah. Fantastic. And before we wrap up, Rinaldo, where else can we find you?
Oh, you go to theworldbusiness.org, and I'd urge everybody to take our free newsletter. It comes out every month, and it's a good summary of the stuff that we are creating. And as I think I told you, I've done 4 books, 40 some articles, 150 opinion pieces. And I think that we cover in the newsletter the 2 or 3 most interesting things that happened that month that we think is worth talking about. The other thing is, please take a free subscription to the Optimist Daily.
Yeah.
Because in the face of all this negative stuff I deal with, I publish that so I get up happy in the morning. Got to do something.
You got to balance it out. Yeah, exactly right. And it's a good read too.
A lot of people that read.
Do recommend it.
It's a good read.
Yeah, it's a great read.
Yeah. You got all kinds of fun things in there. Yeah, and the premise of it, Dave, as you probably know now because you've read it, is that good stuff is happening everywhere. You just don't know about it. There's this old phrase by the American newspaper magnate, William Randolph Hearst. And he had this quote, if it bleeds, it leads. I mean, it's the front page, right? And what we do with Optimist Daily is we go, you know what? It's not bleeding, but it's really good to know about. These things are happening to balance all the negativity that we do talk about that's real.
Yeah.
So how can we start with a positive point of my view and then deal with all of our challenges from that place? Not from like, oh my God, hide my head in the sand like an ostrich.
Yeah. Rinaldo, thank you very much. Sure, I'll probably have to follow up. I've got so many other questions and I'm probably running out of time, but
please do.
Yeah. It's been a pleasure having chatting to you this morning.
Yeah, it's my job is to get the information out. So I'm happy to share as much as we can. Be well, Dave.
You too. Thanks, mate. And thank you for Rinaldo. I'm not going to invite him back because this guy's so knowledgeable. He's got so much to say. I mean, I could go full Joe Rogan and go for hours and hours and hours, but I haven't got the time. I've got ADHD. I haven't got the concentration of the middle. So we will definitely invite him back with along some other guests we had. We had some really high quality ones over the last few weeks. Now, before I go into my outro, I've got one little challenge for you future heads out there. I'm doing a worldwide search. There is one other missing piece of the puzzle in terms of the energy transition, and that is biomass. I know there is an example of a sugarcane crushing mill in northern New South Wales that's turning it into fuel. I'm having a little trouble here, so if you know anyone in biomass who's using ag waste to turn it into a fuel source, particularly for trucks and that sort of thing, and large machinery, please send through to me the details in the show notes. I'm doing a worldwide search. I'm not going to give up at least track one startup out there who's willing to talk on a podcast. Thank you for listening. The Friendly Futurist is a Podcast West production and has been produced and edited by me, Dave Munn. If you love this show, please leave us a 5-star review on your favourite platform. That way it can help me grow. Until next time, friends, remember to stay curious and the future is user-friendly.
Another Podcasts West production.
This podcast is just for educational purposes and it's not financial advice. I'm not a financial planner or advisor. Please do your homework and seek professional help before you take on any adventures.